Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable. DBS Bank and Money Control present Small Business to Smart Business.
Hello and welcome to Money Control. As part of our series Small Business to Smart Business, today's podcast will be focusing on digitizing supply chains. I'm happy to have very special guests joining us today. Firstly, Mr. Venkatesh Sheshadri, who's the head of supply chain consulting at the CII, Mr. Sandeep Kulkarni, who's the chief supply chain officer at Tata Click, and Mr. Divyesh Dalal, who's the managing director and head global transaction services at DBS Bank India. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today, and let's begin. So, I would like to start with you, Mr. Sheshadri. Uh, MSMEs form the backbone of the Indian economy. They are a large contributor to India's workforce, as well as have about one-third of contribution to our exports. Given the recent push for formalization of the MSME sector and the challenges that come with it, there is also an opportunity in terms of developing supply chains, digitalizing supply chains. So, according to you, what is the evolving role of logistics in giving businesses, especially small businesses, a competitive advantage?
Thank you very much for that question. We see a huge opportunity untapped in terms of improving the logistics competitiveness of the SME and MSME. There are two ways where we can approach this entire problem. One is approaching through the SME, MSME, and trying to raise the bar for them. The another approach is where you will be able to talk to the large corporates who are engaging this SME and MSME to start leveraging their expertise and the buying power to help them in improve the overall competitiveness. What we have seen in our consulting assignments, we have seen that approaching through the corporates to the SME, MSME works better, and the success hit rates is much better in that case. There is only one challenge where the SME, MSME don't depend on the domestic market, where they are targeting the export markets. Then this format, what I'm suggesting, may not work. In that case, industry bodies like CII are already playing a role in that space, where we really look at the industry clusters, where we go for year-long engagements with the SME, MSME clusters, where we are able to help them to relook at the logistics and bring in there some of the best practices, what we have seen in some of the Fortune 500 companies, to ensure that they are on track to achieve the competitiveness.
Right. So basically, on the domestic side, you're saying that the larger companies should handhold their vendors, suppliers, etc. While on the export side, there needs to be handholding from the industry. So just a follow-up question on this. India's new foreign trade policy has had quite a few trade facilitation measures. Is CII working specifically with the exporters' bodies on spreading the message from there and actually making a change? Because if we speak to small exporters, they do continue to face problems, especially with regards to logistics.
Yeah, one of the engagements we did a couple of years back, which was tabled with the ministry, was through the Federation of Indian Export Organizations, where we are able to measure the challenges being faced by the exporters in terms of the logistics, basically the transportation, warehousing challenges. We went across nearly 5 sectors and across India. And also when we cherry pick those companies to look at the challenges and opportunities, we had a very diverse set of companies, basically, like the large, mid-size, and the small size. That's one. Second is not limiting ourselves to the metro cities, because whatever we see as an easy way of doing certain things in the metro need not be the same with the tier 2 cities. So we really had a great mix of that, and started deep diving into those challenges and opportunities, which was later submitted and well appreciated by the ministry. So these are some of the engagements we work, and that's something which goes as part of our consulting engagements.
Mr. Kulkarni, I'll come to you. As a large e-commerce logistics player, you are obviously working with a lot of vendors from across the country and possibly also sourcing from elsewhere in the region. Uh, how do you think this digitalization of the supply chain process is something that's apace? How far are we there? How far are smaller players there in sync with you and the processes that you want them to have?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I believe nowadays supply chain alone cannot sustain or cannot grow, right? Digitization is an integral part of the supply chain nowadays. And many of us have been transforming their supply chain, or we call it digital supply chain transformation. And as in Tata Click, I would say that we are there up to 80%. But as you rightly suggested, it is not only the platform that could do the digitization. In our case, where we outsource our entire logistic, right, from the warehousing to the last mile also, we need the logistic partners or the warehousing servicing provided partners also to respond to us so that we all are into a very connected stream, exchange data, mine that data, and make good use of that data, right? That is the only possible way to go forward and to do the win-win situation. I believe nowadays there are a lot many companies who are digitally aware, digitally savvy, and as I can say that our completely warehousing partner provided, we have couple of them, logistic partner. We work with 6, 7 of them. All are fully integrated with us, right? So data flows from all the logistic partner, all the points, and then we could use that data to create our own predictive, prescriptive algorithms and take the digitally driven decisions. So yes, it is very important, and I believe in current scenario, particularly when it comes on to the e-com industry, we are very much there.
For a small MSME who's wondering whether to digitalize on both the supply chain and other aspects of the business, a threshold is often a question. Big question is often the cost associated with doing this. So, would you throw some light on what are the benefits of this digitalization, especially from a speed to market perspective as well as a cost optimization perspective?
Yeah, see, one of the biggest mistakes that most of us do is that digitization does not always mean that you should use the latest technology or you should invest a lots of money into doing it, right? Biggest mistake would be to do the digitization technocentric. Then means that you have a technology or you want to buy certain technology and then deploy it across your supply chain. If you try to do that, it will be very costly and probably not the one that you want. Or rather, your digitization should be value centric, right? So you should define what is the value that your supply chain should provide, take a step back, and then discuss to provide this value. What are the digital capabilities I would need? What are the supply chain processes that I want to change? And what is the environment that I want to work into it? And then take one step back again and then ensure that you provide all these three things and your supply chain derives a value. Digitization could be possible using Excel sheet also or using cloud also, right? And you need not go for a very high tech technology such as blockchain or anything to transfer your supply chain to digitization. If you have the right kind of value proposition that you want your supply chain to be driven, digitization could be done in a very, I won't say cheap, but very value added base, or just by using whatever your suppliers and whatever the system that you're using into it and stitching them together with the APIs. And that is how also you could achieve the digitization. So I would recommend that value driven supply chain makes more sense. It comes at an right cost and right value rather than going solely technocentric digital transformation of your supply chain.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Kulkarni. Coming to you, Mr. Divyesh Dalal, I'll repeat the same question, which is basically what are the challenges that MSMEs face in this digital transformation journey, amid the growing supply chain complexities? Mr. Kulkarni pointed out that you can do it using an Excel sheet, very basic technology. But very often we hear MSMEs talking about, everybody's doing AI and ML, and we got to beat the competition. So how do we get into that? So they're always facing these challenges. So how do these companies get into this, and how does your bank support and facilitate this digitization process, Mr. Dalal?
I think the couple of things that we have to look at is from an MSME perspective, the challenge is because of most of the buyers getting onto online platforms, whether these are e-commerce or otherwise also, right? I think the migration from the physical to the digital or physical to even digital, right, is extremely important from an MSME's perspective. And all of us understand that most of these MSMEs, will not have one, tech unit, or they will not have a CTO, right? So the solutions they need are very, very basic, right? And from an MSME's angle, if you just step back and ask yourself the question that, would they kind of spend money on, an API integration, or would they kind of want to just do more business? the answer will always be the latter, right? They actually want to do more business and want to see if there is any partner out there, whether a bank or otherwise, who's helping them achieve that end objective. So I think if you just keep that simple, basic requirement of an MSME in mind, you'll actually figure out what are the key requirements, right? So the first is information with respect to customers who are requiring their goods or services, right? So if they're able to kind of get that information, whether through a partner or through a platform, I think that's something that they would really appreciate. And I think there are lots of e-commerce players, as well as even the government is kind of driving it in a very big way. So I think there is enough out there in terms of how they would identify that there is demand for their product. I think that's first. And second, in my view, is again information with respect to laws that are enabling them to kind of extract more, right? So for example, there's credit which is available to exporters, and there's subsidized credit also, right? There is subvention also that's available. Now most of them would not be aware, so it is a duty of the bank as well as even the non-bank participants, right, to kind of make them aware to see how they can actually avail of subsidized credit, right? So I think that's the second piece. Third is obviously folks who are exporting or even importing, the integration with various platforms. Today, if they have to do it themselves, then it's extremely difficult. But if they go through partners like Odex, etc., right, or Freight also is a great example, wherein the digital interface which they have with the ports and the ship liners is extremely good, right? And therefore that helps them kind of ship out far more quicker. The documentation piece, etc., is far more quicker, right? And even the realization is far better. So I think some of those elements are good. And last but not the least is, you know, they've identified where they want to sell. They know where they want to go ahead and sell. They've identified partners, but obviously need financing, right? So first is information, but second is the ability to go ahead and seek financing digitally rather than giving reams of paper, which basically takes a significantly long period of time to avail financing. So on all these fronts, what we've done as a bank is actually, start from the last, is that we've got an online platform whereby we take limited set of information from SMEs and MSMEs and actually provide financing, right? And our turnaround times are significantly lower than what the street offers, right? And we believe that our ticket size is also much larger than 1 million that some of the banks on the street offer. So we actually go ahead and provide that facility to MSMEs. Second is our integration with Tally is significantly helping us actually reach out to MSMEs, not only in terms of making simple things like payments. I think Sandeep actually hit the nail on the head. They don't want something which is really out of the park kind of stuff, right? They don't want blockchain technologies or anything of that sort, right? So they want simple integrations with their core banking platforms, in this case Tally, which enables them to actually go out and make a payment through the bank itself. So they don't want to get onto multiple platforms. So I think that's one more piece that we've done effectively, and we've seen a huge change. And the other piece is, embedded with that, you can actually go ahead and even provide efficient solutions around liquidity. So it's not that MSMEs don't have liquidity. Sometimes they have temporary liquidity, but they don't know what to do with that temporary liquidity. So if you can provide some passive investment solutions, I think that's just brilliant, outright brilliant for them. And last but not the least, what we do is our partnerships with folks like Odex really helps us actually move a step further, right? So we also help them actually integrate, and with Odex, which is again integrated with the ports and the ship liners themselves. So I think some of those really helps them also to kind of digitize a documentation flow. Last but not the least, which I thought was most important for us, was in COVID times, because of our digital interface on the supply chain side, we are actually able to go ahead and onboard close to 1,000 suppliers on a given day, right? Which is significantly important for us, because we realize that in times like pandemic, that's when you actually realize how powerful a digital solution can be. It was extremely challenging for some of the service providers, including fintechs in the market. But what we did was we invested ahead of time, which is a couple of years back. And when in 2020 there was a challenging situation, we were actually able to step up far better than most people on the street. And I think that's significantly important, because that gives confidence to the MSME to actually interact with the bank, not only for financing, but also for the regular flows. And I think these are a couple of things which we've done. Obviously, there's much more in the pipe. And, as we see, there will be some developments that will come out, and enhancement that will come out during the year. But again, our endeavor has always been, how can we help the MSMEs sell more and better, right? I think that's been our central mantra. And if digital is a way to help them drive and achieve it, then so be it. Right. So I think these are a couple of things which were important from our perspective, what we've done and what we aim to do over the next couple of months.
Thank you, Mr. Dalal, for that detailed response. What are the key benefits that SMEs can expect from this integrated digital and supply chain financing facility?
Yeah, so couple of things. So the first one is obviously the ability to go ahead and identify a bank which is willing to lend them. I think that's the first and most important thing in my view, right? The digital connect and outreach is much more important. Today, if the MSME has to go to his or her bank to avail financing, I think there's a very, very different flow, right, from their perspective. Second is they want to sell more, right? They clearly want to sell more and they have the opportunity or the order also. But if there's somebody who can provide them financing basis the underlying purchase order, that's great. So we have actually a, a solution whereby we identify based on data how much of financing can we provide to a particular supplier based on history. So that is again a much bigger step than what we had done earlier, right? So we not only provide financing for goods that are shipped out, but we also provide financing to an MSME for purchase orders that they've received from, let's say, suppliers with whom they have a steady relationship and there is a vintage where the rejects are low, right? So we've got a model whereby we actually go ahead and even provide this financing to the MSME. And last but not the least, the integration actually helps them even, avail of temporary facilities. So like I mentioned earlier, we have an online platform through which we actually identify how much credit we can give an MSME, and then we can provide working capital financing through that. So again, we thought that is an integral part of how we are trying to drive digital through the MSMEs. And on top of that, I mean, the whole FX solution, which again is far more important in our perspective, because we believe the MSMEs today need more transparency with respect to the way FX has been sold and purchased, right? So again, an online solution is extremely important in our mindset. So if you look at it, it's credit, it's enabling them to sell more, driving working capital solutions to them, providing efficient FX and liquidity solutions. So if you look at all these three, it basically helps the MSMEs become far more effective.
Mr. Sheshadri, I would like to come back to you. At CI, obviously, you are part of the industry, working closely with industry policy circles. You specifically at the Center of Excellence are also working closely with academia. So, what are the challenges from in perspective of this digitization of supply chain that we are talking about, as well as what are the opportunities? Is there scope to build value sustainability in supply chains? Can we look at decarbonization closely? Uh, is something exciting happening in warehousing? I've been hearing a lot of automated systems have come into that field. If you could share some of these fine and newer insights with us.
It's all about getting more with less. You may call it as frugal engineering or jugaad. What we are looking at is how to really, go with some minimalist technology and able to get the value achieved. So I remember quoting that book of C.K. Prahalad, it's a fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, which says that just because you are at the bottom of the market in terms of your customer base doesn't necessarily mean that your service level expectation from the customer's point of view will be low. So this is, I would say, is a double-edged sword. So this is where we see that connecting some of the best practices from some of the corporate companies to the smaller players in the industry is extremely important. And we have come up with a very compelling ecosystem where we have multiple layers of CXOs working with us. And we have nearly 35,000 certified professionals. And out of them are 1,000 MBA students, which where you can see the industry academia connect. And also a lot of startups who are getting into this space. So the startups we usually encourage is not the one who have just got the idea. We are looking at the startups who have the first set of customers with them and help them how to scale up further. So this is our really important. And you can say that what has brought you here need not take you there. That means you have achieved a certain level of maturity in terms of the operational excellence, maybe through people deployment and all. But what we need to look at is like exploring the opportunities to bring in technology. The moment we talk about technology, then people always associate with some big ticket investments. That's something which we are not looking at. So we do have a lot of brilliant solutions in Indian supply chain startups. That's always encourages us to look for the moonshots, what you call it. When you're getting back to this, the important opportunities is the first is, I would say, the skill set of the people. The mainly at the white collar level, this is an ample opportunity left on the table. Followed by that, we look at minimum basic technology. which will really help you to bring in those efficiency and effectiveness. That could be the second pillar, which you can talk about. The third is on the trending themes. The trending themes could be broadly the green initiatives. The second could be the BCP, what we call the business continuity programs, so that we have learned the hard way thanks to the Black Swan events, which we have seen in the post-pandemic scenarios. That could be another opportunity where we can look at it. So, but the moment you talk about green, the first thing comes to all our mind is like the lofty goals, the ESG goals, and the net zero. These are not things which you are really looking at this point of time. What you're looking at how to really manage the emissions. So it could be even as simple as what we have seen in one of the client premises, where they have just kept a stationary cycle. So the people, whenever they get time, they sit on the cycle and start pedaling it, so that generates electricity sufficient enough to power the laptops and the mobile chargers, and also help them to burn calories. So we are looking at some basic things which can really show that you're really serious about your journey and emission control. Going back to this warehouse automation, there are a lot of opportunities here. I came across one of the companies in the southern India where they have come up with a brilliant automation solution that can help to cut down your warehousing storage space by 80%. I told the promoter of the company, if I would not have met you, if I would not have come to your facility, I'd not be even knowing it. Basically, what we need is the awareness in the industry. It's not going to be really expensive, and that's something which we are working on, how to really make these companies known to the larger world. So that is adoption, and which helps us to improve the overall operational efficiency. Also, CI has got a model, what we call as a VAREX, warehouse operation excellence model, where we are rating the warehouses from bronze to titanium levels. So to say, we have less than 10 facilities who are titanium ranked. We have nearly 25 million square feet of warehousing space rated in India and abroad. So we are encouraging a lot of companies to go for it, and we have got multiple signups happening. And this keeps the customer value front and center. So it is earlier it was an inside-out model. Now we are driving it from an outside perspective, and that could help us to bring a lot of deals.
That's great to know, Mr. Seshadri, and one hopes that CI does spread the good word in terms of the initiatives like the ones you just spoke about. Moving on to Mr. Kulkarni, you run a pretty complex supply chain, I'm sure, and Mr. Sheshadri mentioned about greening of supply chains and how much of that is possible. Maybe there are a few nifty and smart things that can be done within the process itself. What's your view of this? And given what the supply chain disruptions that we just saw in the past few years, given COVID and everything else, how does the end-to-end visibility of your product journey work at Tata Click?
Yeah. So, end-to-end visibility of a supply chain, we consider it as a part of a digital supply chain transformation, right? And probably I would say that this is the first step towards digitally transforming your supply chain. Unless you have an end-to-end visibility right from the time when the customer places an order on your platform till the time that order is successfully terminated. So either it get delivered to the customer, or customer for some other reason returns and you provide a refund to it. So I'll tell you an example. In Tata, we were using, as I earlier said, various different systems. We had a couple of warehousing management systems. We were using 5-6 different logistic partners, and of course, visibility was to a certain extent was broken. So we within our in-house team developed the APIs and ADIs, and we literally stitched all the system together, and that's how we have created the end-to-end visibility. So this is, of course, in first step towards really transforming your supply chain also, and this helps you to bring the resilience into your supply chain as well. So as we all know that COVID literally opened our eyes and sort of compelled us to be prepared to ready to handle the disruptions in supply chain. And at that point of time, we launched a framework which we call as define, detect, and then deploy sort of thing. So we have adopted resistance and recovery as our strategy towards building the resilient supply chain. So resistance is nothing but building redundancy on supply chain, building multiple warehouses. So if one warehouse goes down, you could switch it to other one, or building multi-modal or multi-carrier logistic partner. So you could switch the logistic partner, or you could switch from let's say air to surface to rail on a particular lane. And then there are detecting mechanisms such as every single untimely scan could be a detecting mechanism. End-to-end visibility will tells you that if your shipment is flowing the way it is supposed to flow from point A to point B, and if there is any disruption into that, then that is the point we need to activate your either resistance or recovery strategy, right? And when it comes to deployment, we did little data mining and we actually plotted all those disruptions occurring against the frequency of those disruptions. So, just to an example, let's say COVID is something which can occur very infrequently. Frequency is very less, but the impact is very high. And on the other end, there's a disruption into your delivery channel, which could occur often, but the impact is very less. And everything falls between these two. So with these two spectrum, either we could deploy resistance and recovery strategy to handle this. So with this framework, we won't be able to stop the disruptions completely for sure, but we can definitely be confident that if anything of this sort comes out in the future, we will be better prepared to handle that situation.
Right. So, how easy to, as we spoke about earlier, if you could elaborate, if you could tell us in short, how easy do new vendors find to integrate in this? Do they have to get a software, or can they just plug into your existing system as it is?
It is, I believe, it's a shake hand. It is not that only the vendors have to respond to you, but you also have to respond to their systems, right? And of course, the APIs, the parameters, or the EDIs are different for every single vendor or the logistic partner that we work with. But if you have, let's say, a direction and you know what you want to achieve and for what you want to achieve, I believe cooperation is something that helps us. So we literally sat with each one of our logistic partners, explain them why we are doing this, why this framework is important, and what is required to achieve this end-to-end visibility and to create this supply chain resilience framework that we wanted to create. And then we integrated our systems into end. It took us time, but then finally we could do it, right? So it is a shake hand, and it's a win-win situation for both, for our platform and for the logistics supply partners or the vendors that we are.
Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni. Coming to you, Mr. Dalal, finally, what trends or developments do you believe will significantly shape and transform the way SMEs are managing their supply chains, given all that we discussed together? And how's the bank looking at helping them in this evolving landscape?
We clearly see a lot of shift in terms of focus around areas like ESG. So close to like 92% of SMEs and MSMEs that we speak to clearly believe that there is a drive towards ESG. I mean, they understand ESG, but like I would say close to 53-54% of them need more understanding around ESG. So the first and most important thing that we're doing is helping them understand and working with their partners, right? So larger anchors in India or overseas, helping them enable to achieve their ESG goals. So that for us is of paramount importance. So as we get into the next 6 months to 1 year, you will see a lot of kind of sessions that the bank would take, kind of initiatives also that the bank would take to kind of drive this agenda. So I think that's one. Second is clearly as the MSMEs go global, right? There will be a need to kind of enable them to partner with service providers, could be either fintechs, could be banks, could be multiples of even fintechs or even neobanks, to see how we can help them kind of move on to some of these platforms such that their end-to-end transit time is significantly lower. So I think that's the other piece which we will continue to invest. So like our partnership with Odex, etc., is a great example of the first steps that we've taken in that direction. So I think that's one. Second is lending more digitally and at a transaction level. So all the working capital financing is provided by banks, but we clearly believe that there is a big space out there wherein the MSMEs today actually are struggling to get financing for the POs, right? So everybody is willing to step in and provide them financing once the goods are shipped out, including the insurers and the factors also, right? But it's the guy needs financing to actually manufacture goods, and that's the space which we believe is clearly going to explode significantly by the use of data, right? So I think data-led models wherein you're able to identify opportunity to kind of lend to an MSME, which will help them kind of deliver far more quicker, faster, and at a significantly lower cost. So that's the third thing we clearly believe there's an opportunity. Fourth and most important is I think multi-tier supply chain. I think that's the big piece which needs to be really, really peeled out in my view. So if you look at it today, there is the large corporate, and then there are various suppliers underneath. So like Tata Click is a significantly large corporate, and there are various suppliers below. But if you look at lower down, you would have still second and third tier supply chain which is still not getting addressed. And that's the space that we're focusing on, because we believe that's where there is significant room for improvement, both on liquidity, credit, time to market, making them more efficient in terms of visibility on when goods are getting shipped out, etc., all of that, right? So I think that's the piece which is actually really really interesting to us. And ONDC, if you've seen the announcement that they've made, and the plan that the government also has around ONDC, I think there is significant opportunity out there, and it clearly addresses the third and fourth layer, right, which is not getting addressed as of now. So actually, the second, third, and fourth, I think those are the multi-tier supply chains where we're looking to invest. We spent far more efforts over the last couple of months and years, but again, we'll continue to build platforms around how do we provide credit, how do you give them visibility around information, how do we help them kind of sell more quicker locally as well as offshore, and last but not the least, how can we embed with platforms such that that helps them or the MSMEs become far more effective. So these are areas where we clearly believe there is significant amount of work, and obviously ESG is right on top out there in our view.
Thank you. Salient points. Actually, on the lower tiers of the supply chain, if I could come back quickly for quick comments from Mr. Sheshadri first. So, what do you think about this lower end? I mean, you spoke about Jugaad initially. A lot of the supply chain is, I would, in layman's terms, is working as a Jugaad. I mean, it's a traditional system that's been there for a while, and people have probably little incentive to move away from that. Can digital solutions actually move to those lower tiers easily?
Yes, there is every possibility to move in. Otherwise, what we see is like if that doesn't happen, then you're not going to benefit out of the value you are trying to derive out of these supply chains. It's a necessity, I would say. That's why to make it more sustainable, we are approaching that entire initiative, the multi-tier suppliers. We are approaching from the corporates, which has really worked. And now we have even seen the increasing number of companies who are seeing that even a driver moving the trucks, they are not just carrying out the goods, they are carrying out brand. So this sort of ownership has started coming. We have increasingly started seeing in the market. So when we really chip in this with this idea, how do you really get your SMEs, MSMEs, or whoever is there, the tier end supplier, how will you really get them on board? They are more than inclined to get them on board. And we do have dedicated initiatives which focuses on that. Like it could be even the blue collar skill set levels at that level. So everything is done. And on a broad level, in the terms of the consulting and transformations, we take it up as I mentioned, as a cluster approach, which is being proved to be really effective. So that's how we could see. And coming back to the Jugaad, and we have seen some innovative solutions. And the reason actually, although it was really most of the time is was taken on the, I would say, the wrong perspective. And what I've seen increasingly, the Westerners started understanding the maturity and the competitiveness in the India market from the term Jugaad, and which was even published by some of the Western bloggers, saying that they're one of the critical success factor that differentiates the overall performance of the different sets of industries, Jugaad. And basically, I translate it into getting more with less.
Sure, sure. Thanks for that. Mr. Kulkarni, quickly, are you as a large e-commerce market player able to convince the smaller guys to on the benefits of speed to market and cost optimization, etc.?
Definitely, it's a very important point brought up by Mr. Dalal, right? About the rather empowering the tier three, tier four players into the digitization. I would say that digitization one is the part of having an end-to-end visibility, deriving your own data, creating your predictive prescriptive modeling, and all. What digitization also drives is a very effective outsourcing. So if you see nowadays, there are companies who work as an Uber and Ola of the logistic partners, right? So they don't themselves hold any assets, but they aggregate those assets and probably sell it or rent it to the players like us. So I believe digitization is an extremely important part, irrespective of the size and shape your company is. Probably if you're as big as Amazon, you can have your own digitization and do wonders with it. But the smallest of the companies nowadays very difficult to live without digitalization. You won't be able to explore the whole total power and the total benefit that the outsourcing model or the digitization can do for you. I believe it's very important for you to specify your size, shape, and whether which part of journey you are. You're just starting or you are in mature supply chain.
Thanks. With that, I'll thank my three very special guests for joining us at Money Control today. As you know, this podcast was a part of the Small Business to Smart Business series. Keep tuning into Money Control. Thank you.
DBS Bank and Money Control present Small Business to Smart Business. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.